You've covered City Hall in Toronto for so long. Have you ever seen anything like this?
No, the last 4 years have been unbelievable in many ways. I mean, one of the incredible things about it is that if you are somebody who likes a story that changes constantly, likes a story that you don't know what's going to happen, this is the story for you. There was a point when things were really flying into gear around the mayor. I get up really early in the morning. Sometimes I have a nap, and I would have a nap and I would wake up and things had changed dramatically. So I was trying to figure out how I could nap and not sleep through developments. If I went and saw a movie in the middle of the day and I would come out and suddenly the mayor has fired his chief of staff or whatever, it's the kind of thing that, I mean, again, you blink and suddenly it's changed. It would be the same for you, I guess.
It was one of those things where you couldn't really blink or you couldn't turn away, and to the point where you got so attuned to any little change happening around you while you're standing in front of the mayor's office that the one thing that would sort of alert us to something happening was the clicks of the print cameras of the photographers, which also sounds a lot like the crumpling of wax paper. And so a lot of times people would be opening their lunch and it would sound like the photographer. So you'd be sitting there maybe on your BlackBerry or something, or making a call, and then suddenly you turn around and say, what's happening? Is something going on? And
I'm just having a sandwich.
And somebody's just having a sandwich. But then other times, somebody, another staffer was being let out, or suddenly a pro wrestler would show up to try to get some publicity over the Fords. And it was just one of those things that people say, what's it like covering it? And I'd say it's unlike anything I've ever done, because every day you think you've got to that point where, this is unbelievable and no one could have ever scripted this. Then we go well beyond that line. And that line where we first thought, this is beyond unbelievable, we've crossed that line and we're way past that.
So there are a lot of people who have been critical of the media kind of just standing in front of the office, just saying, like, why are you there? I mean, what are you doing killing time in front of the office? Why do you have to be there? Why not be out and about? Why for you is it important? I mean, you said just to kind of be spending all that time waiting, because I've been up there and I would see people in front of the office, and some people are sitting down, some people are lying down, and then suddenly they have to spring into action. Why is that important?
I think if it was up to us, we wouldn't be there, but it's sort of the atmosphere that's been created around the story, and that it started right from when the story first came out in May of last year, that the Fords didn't hold, or the mayor at the time didn't hold a proper news conference in a proper setting where people could come and ask questions and he would respond. And so it created this environment where we had to stand in front of his office because we never knew when he was going to say something or where he was going to say something. Even when he made the admission that he smoked crack, that wasn't planned.
He was on the way from the elevator or something, right?
He was just coming out of the office and one of the reporters put the question to him. And it wasn't even a question about that. It was about something sort of innocuous. And then he sort of paused in his mind, and you could see behind his eyes that he just made that decision. All right, this is it. But no one knew. There was no press release saying show up at this time and talk about it. So that's kind of the reason why we have to be there. Not that any of us really want to be there, but it's just the nature of what City Hall has become.
I mean, we've sort of been on the other end of that, in which we've, for a long time, have tried to get the mayor on our program, and we've spoken to him. I think we spoke to him 3 times when he was in office. He's still technically in office, but when he was in office. And you never really knew what was going to happen. The first time, right after the election, we spoke with him early in the morning. We had him on the phone once. He came into the studio, I guess there's 4 times. And then the last time, we weren't sure whether he was going to show up at all. I mean, they'd said that he was coming. They said he was coming. We couldn't find him. Doug couldn't find him. Sports were going on. He should be there. In 3 minutes, he should be here. In 2 minutes, he's not here. And suddenly you look out through the window of the studio and you see this scene of him and his handlers and our people trying to hustle him into the studio. And it was sort of a last minute kind of thing. You never really knew what was going to happen.
So I wonder if you see sort of the divide between suburban listeners and urban listeners, because I know when I'm out in the field...
You would see it for sure, yeah.
Yeah, when I'm out in the field, and especially the other day when we were covering when Rob Ford was first checked into hospital, and I was in front of the Humber River Hospital. And when you're in front of any public place, people see a gathering of the media, they come up and ask you what's happening. And everyone I would tell, we're here because Mayor Ford has been checked into hospital. And almost to a person, the reaction I got was, oh, that's really sad, I'm really sorry for him, we support him and we wish him all the best. And that changed a lot. It was almost the exact opposite when we came downtown and we were in front of Mount Sinai. And people asked us what we were doing there, and I'd say, oh, Rob Ford's been transferred to this hospital. And people would kind of brush it off and say, oh, him. And, the reaction was
That's
very
so
different.
interesting. And you see that a lot, when you're out traveling around in various locations in the city.
Yeah, because I always often wonder sometimes, if people who ask me, how can Rob Ford or how can Doug Ford get elected? if they travel north of Bloor sometimes, because that's where I see the divide. In Scarborough and Etobicoke and North York, people have a very different view of the Fords. His bullying or his belligerence sometimes, a lot of people think that's okay because they think there's a lot of dysfunction at City Hall, and sometimes you need a bully or you need somebody who can speak their mind and say what they really think to get things done.
I think you're right. I mean, one of the benefits of my job is I get up really early, and so I have all day to do stuff. And I could sit at home and, I don't know, play Nintendo, or I could leave and go out into the city, which is what I do. And I end up kind of going from one end of town to the other and hang out with people in Scarborough and go and have lunch in Etobicoke and ride my bike out to Rexdale and go up to North York. And the more that you talk to people, the more you realize how big the city is, right? And that what people's reality is there is very different than it is 5 blocks over or 10 blocks down. That if you're in, at Kipling and Finch and Jane, for example, City Hall is way down there, right?
Yeah.
You have
another world.
You have no contact with City Hall. You may not go downtown very often at all. And the issues that people think are important here, or right down at Spadina and Wellington, are completely different than up there. And the more you actually go out there and see and talk with people and hang out and get your hair cut in the barber shop and go and eat roti or go to the Hopper Hut in Scarborough, the more you realize that the city is actually a big, sprawling place that is more disconnected maybe than ever before. And that's to me been the biggest thing that's come out in the last 4 years. And people talk a lot about it, but people don't actually engage, I think, as much as we should to try and stitch that back together.
I think it is teaching people though a lot about this city and who makes up this city and what their values and what their beliefs are and how they feel about politics. And I think it's opening a lot of people's eyes to what's happening in a lot of neighborhoods across the city as well.